The witnessing of ghosts, spirits, phantoms, or even deities in a mirror is certainly not something new. In fact, the practice of searching for higher knowledge, or even the divine, has thought to have been practiced as far as ancient times, and is known as captumancy. Pausanias, an ancient Greek traveller, once described a ritual taking place before the temple of Ceres at Patras, where he describes a fountain that contained an oracle. Now, the oracle wasn't exactly a seer for ordinary folk, but one who told those who were sickly their fate. The idea was that a sick person, after having paid tribute to their gods, would come to the fountain and suspend a mirror by a thread until it touched the surface of the water. Then, looking into the mirror, the man or woman suffering would see the image of death, or the image of themselves looking healthy. Depending on what they saw, would determine whether they would overcome their sickness or not. Captumancy and mirrors also lends to the idea that mirrors were portals between this world and the world of the spirits. In some cases where someone had died, mirrors in the house were covered until the body was taken out for burial. It was believed that if the deceased caught a glimpse of themselves in the mirror, their ghost would remain in the house forever, because the mirror had trapped their soul. But since then, a far more insidious and horrifying practice made its way into the homes of the curious, the daring, and perhaps the foolish. Those thrill-seekers amongst us, from the early 20th century onwards, simply didn't seem content with the reflection of themselves in a mirror, and so, somehow, something else would soon come to take its place. A conjured spirit that, just like the oracle at Patras, revealed the future, or perhaps showed the victims their destiny. It, or she, was known as Bloody Mary, and in today's video we're going to explore where this monstrous idea came from, how it was practiced, and whether there could be any truth to this vengeful reflection. Historically, such divination rituals did not consist of a mirror at all, and the morality of the spirit or entity being conjured could often differ. Sometimes it was thought to be a more benign character that brought fortune, prophecy, or otherwise good advice. But other times it was malevolent, wrathful, and either brought tellings of tragedy or portended an omen. Historically speaking, rituals regarding captumancy in the early 20th century saw a young person, usually a girl, walk up a flight of stairs backwards, whilst holding a candle and a hand mirror. As they gazed into the mirror, they were either able to glimpse the face of their future husband, or would be greeted by a skull, perhaps the Grim Reaper himself, suggesting that death would meet them before their husbands would. But sometime over the years, the ritual evolved into the one we are more familiar with today, where this Bloody Mary started showing up in reflections after being invoked by individuals or groups. The practice involves chanting the name of Bloody Mary into a mirror, and that the person chanting has to be in a dimly lit room, or a room that is lit by candlelight. The Bloody Mary moniker must be then repeated 3 times, or more depending on the version, in front of the mirror, and thus the apparition of this ghastly woman is thought to appear. In some variations, she appears as a corpse, but other reports suggest she appears as an apparition, or sometimes in a more human essence, usually a witch. Once more, her morality comes into question, where she can either be friendly, seeking to bring good tidings and counsel, or she can be wicked and seek to terrify by screaming at the summoners, cursing them, strangling them, stealing their souls, and or scratching their eyes out. Folklorist Janet Langlois published her own research in 1978, when the phenomena was more widespread in America. Here, Langlois explains the popularity of the legend, and whether it was a myth that spawned the ritual, or a ritual which spawned the myth. She details several events of young girls who had gathered for sleepovers, and would almost always come to consist of a group huddled together in the bathroom. There, in front of the bathroom mirror, the ritual was conducted. Previous entries into the legend of Bloody Mary come from the Anthology of American Children's Folklore by Mary and Herbert Knapp in 1976. Here they discuss the idea that Bloody Mary was once a witch, known as Mary Worth, which stems from an idea that Mary Worth had been executed some hundreds of years ago for her practice in the dark arts. Meanwhile, another legend exists of Mary Worth being a woman of more modern times, but had died in a car accident in which she suffered a hideous mutilation of the face. Thereafter, she could be summoned in the reflection of a mirror, and would inspire fear into young girls who still had their lives ahead of them. The primary elements of this ritual appear to be unanimous across all accounts, where the initiators, the location, and the method are all the same. A young child, usually a girl, summons the spirit of Mary, for whatever reason, and then proceeds to get more than she bargained for, usually a terrifying encounter that stays with her forever. Folklorist Simon J. Bronner speaks of the ritual being a common tradition within girls at elementary schools, and that its popularity was cultivated by the atmosphere of seance, and or the camaraderie formulated in a shared fear amongst peers. Bronner continued that the participants of the ritual would often be thought to be huddled together in the bathroom with the lights off, and that they had to really believe in Mary, otherwise she would not appear. Another account by Bronner gives a lesser known variation of Bloody Mary, stating that Mary was a woman who was murdered behind an elementary school. There, her ghost was thought to hunt the grounds around the school, and that she would actually manifest in the mirrors of the girls' bathroom. To summon her, girls would go into the bathroom and draw a drop of blood between their fingers. Then they would need to say the words, "We believe in Bloody Mary" 10 times, with their eyes shut. Upon opening their eyes, the face of Bloody Mary would be waiting for them in the mirror. Here she was described by Bronner as a young woman with long hair, pale skin, and blood running down her face, from a gash in her head. Other versions of the legend exist in terms of various school bathroom rules, where a girl would go to the school toilets, but that her friends would need to wait outside, as only one person was allowed in at a time. One girl would stand at the door to turn the lights off, once the girl who went inside to summon Bloody Mary was positioned in front of the mirror. Once the lights were turned off, the girl would close her eyes and turn around 3 times. Then she would need to open her eyes and stare directly into the mirror, whilst chanting, "Bloody Mary, show your fright this starry night." Then, once Bloody Mary took shape in the bathroom mirror, the girl would need to run out of the bathroom, where her friends would be waiting. If the girl had done something reprehensible, she was thought to have emerged with 3 scratches upon her cheek. Another version speaks of Bloody Mary appearing as a headless female in a white gown, and that in her right hand she wields a bloody knife, and in her left hand she holds her severed head. Others speak of a more gradual emergence of Bloody Mary, in that after the ritual has been conducted, a spot of blood will appear on the mirror. Over the next few days, the spot of blood will increase in size, until eventually, Bloody Mary's face will emerge. A secondary portion of the ritual has also been reported, where the participants must flush all of the toilets, assuming they're in a public bathroom, and then run out of the bathroom. Supposedly, Bloody Mary will later make herself known, whether through the mirror or through bad omens. The toilet itself also plays a role in other legends, where Bloody Mary is thought to break free of the mirror and drag the victim down the toilet with her. In some accounts, flushing the toilet also caused Bloody Mary to vanish from the mirror. Here, sometimes the water in the toilet would turn red, or was thought to be the blood of the spirit. An interesting idea that's been purported is that the combination of a scary woman, the blood, the toilet, and the mirror all relate to the fear and anxiety of a girl's first period, and the significant transition from girlhood to womanhood. The use of a bathroom in the ritual is also a pretty common environment in which girls go to do their lady biz, and the potential dread or nervousness that comes with that experience, especially for a young girl, is perhaps paralleled by the same feelings when conjuring Bloody Mary. The scary woman in Bloody Mary may come to represent the fear of aging, and the gruesome entity in the mirror could be a foreboding representation of what awaits in adulthood. The fact that she appears in a mirror also supports an idea that the Bloody Mary is the girl staring into the mirror, and that the reflection is a manifestation of all the girl's fears, uncertainties, vulnerabilities, and insecurities that she may carry into her adult years. There is also a proposal that this interpretation explains why there is such an emphasis on the sudden appearance of blood. The curious detail of the flushing of one or more toilets in these legends could also be a symbolic representation of the potentially embarrassing prospect of one's own blood, and the effort taken to hide it. Of course, this idea of the Bloody Mary doesn't take into consideration the upsides of a girl becoming a woman, and only focuses on the negative and the worst case scenario, as we as humans are prone to doing. By this, the idea of the Bloody Mary would be a more tangible and relatable experience that girls could understand, especially in a time when such things were more taboo. It allowed girls to take control of that situation, an ability they do not have when it comes to puberty, and would perhaps allow them some relief from such trepidation. Notice how Bloody Mary can be summoned upon the participant's will, and that the spirit can be escaped from by fleeing the bathroom or flushing the toilet. This escape, of course, is not viable in the real-life physiological changes of the body, and so, in some regards, Bloody Mary, despite being a frightening figure, was also some consolation. The summoning of Mary was also thought to have only been successful if the correct chant was used, those including the repetition of "I believe in Mary Worth," or "Mary come out," or simply the standard Bloody Mary. A more sinister version exists where the participant must chant "Bloody Mary, I killed your baby," in an effort to summon her. Here, not only does this invoke a more vengeful Mary, but it also suggests a new narrative for Mary, a woman who lost her baby through ambiguous means and now seeks for it in the afterlife. Some of you may be wondering why Bloody Mary is named Mary at all, and as you might imagine, there are many theories regarding this. Of course, we've mentioned the case of Mary Worth, a woman thought to either be a witch from the days of old, or a relatively unknown local woman who was either murdered or met her demise in some tragedy. Then there could be something of an allusion to the Virgin Mary, especially considering the ritual was thought to have taken place quite frequently in Catholic elementary schools. Her emergence therefore in the mirror could be a sign of a displeasure at the girls who have summoned her, perhaps an indication of their sin or eventual sins. The headless Mary in some versions is sometimes linked with Mary Queen of Scots, who was in fact beheaded in the 16th century. Yet another association is made to another Queen Mary in Mary I, the daughter of Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, she who was dubbed Bloody Mary because of the many bloody persecutions that had occurred during her reign. The entity in the mirror has also gone by many names, usually maintaining the Mary prefix. These include Hail Mary, Mary Worthington, Mary Johnson, Mary Lou, or Mary Jane. Another common inclusion is Mary Wails, thought to be in reference to the wailing sound made by the being who appears in the mirror, or a reflection of the pain she experienced in her life before becoming this mirror-bound spirit. Amongst these names are various nicknames, including Bloody Bones, Black Agnes, or the Japanese variant Hanako-san. Much like Bloody Mary, Hanako-san is summoned by young girls, and is thought to be a spirit that haunts school bathrooms. The details of her appearance vary, but a common description includes her being a child herself, and having a bobbed haircut and wearing a red dress. In some versions, this Hanako-san was said to have been murdered in a school bathroom, or that she committed suicide, and that she now lurks there for eternity as a spectre. There is a similar ritual to summon her as with Bloody Mary, where participants must knock 3 times on the 3rd bathroom stall and ask if Hanako-san is present. If she is, then she will respond. Some state that they witness the appearance of a bloody red handprint, or the bloody hand of Hanako-san herself, who pulls the victim into the stall and down the toilet with her. Hanako-san has also thought to have appeared in the mirrors of the bathroom, standing ominously beside the occupant. By this point, you might be wondering, why the heck do people even do these things? Well, one probable reason is peer pressure. Whilst the ritual can be performed individually by the true psychopaths, it is usually done so in a group, where participants may have that simple desire of belonging. This makes it difficult for each girl to decline participating. As touched upon earlier, the Bloody Mary ritual might also be something of a rite of passage for young girls in their transition to womanhood, and could be viewed on some level as a celebration. You might also say that some people simply have a death wish, and should probably be looking less for Bloody Mary and more for a therapist. Speaking of psychology, there's also an idea that children of an older age group seek to satiate a craving for excitement by acting in these rituals, though they are seen more of as games and safe ways to endorse exhilaration whilst releasing anxiety and fear. So if the Bloody Mary was simply a feature of some childish adventures, then what is it about this practice that makes it so compelling? Well, perhaps there is, in some regard, some truth as to what young people may have been seeing. It is believed that if one was to stare into a mirror for a prolonged period of time, it could cause one to hallucinate to some degree. Features might appear to distort, warp, or even deform in some regard, or there could even be a changing of colours and shapes. Some studies refer to this as a dissociative identity effect, which causes the facial recognition system of the brain to basically derp out for a moment. And by this idea, it is very possible that children who were so already fixated on seeing Bloody Mary, as well as the added anticipation, might have ended up actually seeing something peculiar. But let me know if you have any stories of Bloody Mary in the comments below, and whether you'd try your luck at summoning her in your bathroom. If this video gets 100,000 views in the next 2 weeks, I'll live stream it for you myself. Until then, if you've enjoyed today's installment of Mysterious Legends and Creatures, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more content just like this. Until next time.